And then I'm just going to say one last thing, and it's not necessarily relevant to anything, but it is something to understand as we're talking about post-modernity. The thing to always ask is whether it's how to design a group or how we need to be communicating in a group is I want you to explore and be ready to tell me how your suggestion is not just more postmodern green meme community, and where the Epoch 6 element is that's in it. Because I don't want to create more of that. Now, the enduring parts of it we have to transcend and include. But one of the things that all developmentalists, at least with integral capacities, know is that postmodernity, as it's gone pathological, has weaponized language. And what has happened is that it's grabbed a power by telling someone else how they need to language everything, as opposed to just growing up enough to receive it and not be wounded. These are different things.
Can I give an example?
It just what's that?
Can you give an example when you're ready to give an example?
An example would be some of the extreme versions of what's happening in identity politics. When it's not enough to acknowledge someone as equal, but to force another person's language into how you think their language should be used in every situation to address them or address the circumstance. Where they're taking the power of authority that they don't feel like they have and forcing you into using that in a certain way. So if we can say, I hate that word and that word is really inappropriate, we can seize power. And there's a power grab going on right now in postmodernity that feels disempowered, and it's going about it all the wrong ways. It's going about it in ways that are creating backlash. And it's a weaponization of language.
I'm expressing my experience of it. That to me,
right here, but here's the postmodern turn in that. Your experience of it isn't what gets to dominate the group.
okay.
And that's what postmodernity wants to do. Your experience of it does not overpower the group dynamic. That's the narcissism that creeps into postmodernity. That's where the ego says, I capture power because it becomes all about me. And I get my voice, I get my time, I get my experience, and God, you're going to hear it and live with it. That's part of what Wilbur calls boomeritis. And so a legitimate pushback is, but I understand your experience, but none of those things are what's actually operating in the group. And so if you have that experience, you have that experience, but it doesn't get to ripple through and filter through and take over or occupy the group dynamic simply because it's your experience. Because that's the whole identity politics thing. That's the whole expansion of the postmodern creep became, if we're all equal, if all perspectives are relative, then my perspective is just as valid as anyone's. Nobody tells me what to do. And I should get my voice in any situation. And that leads to a certain level of disaster that's now happening. And so the truth in it is we do get to all have our experience. But from Epoch 6, there is still a value judgment applied to how your experience gets to be expressed in a group or how much time it gets. I'm not talking about you, Joe. This is a general, right?
But you could be. I mean, I want you to let me know in short when it's all done. Like, what did I just reveal here that I wasn't aware of?
What you revealed to me is a pretty strong linking into a postmodern consciousness that wants your experience to be very important and very valid, so much so that it can hijack a group dynamic because it no longer came to reason, but this is how the group really is, it becomes that doesn't matter, that's my experience. Doesn't matter, that's my experience. Doesn't matter if you didn't call me this name or that's my experience. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you held the door for me, it was a microaggression because that's my experience. That's one of the challenges we have in post-modernity right now.
Are you talking about, are you talking about like when you're saying this, what I'm thinking of is you're talking about examples like when people use race or gender fluidity or political sides or blah, blah, you're talking about like this, right? And how people then can use that and be like, well, this isn't, like that.
I'm talking about all of it. I'm talking about the ability to let how you experience something become the determining guide as to how the world is supposed to work. Or the person on the other side of that. And that is narcissism, in a word. And it is rampant in postmodern culture. Every developmentalist knows it. Every one of them believes it's collapsing. Wilbur calls it boomeritis. Spiral Dynamics calls it the mean green meme. The green meme is postmodernity. The mean green meme, it's mean because underlying it is the narcissism of someone else demanding how you're supposed to relate to them. And there's a hidden, actually mean narcissism in it that's a power grab. And you don't simply get to dictate how everyone around you behaves, how they think, what they say, how the world is supposed to work. And what in Epoch 6 we realize is we have to grow up enough to not be the victim in the world. We have to be the one leading the group, pulling the person out of the group, right? And so I'm understanding this conversation isn't appropriate for everyone. I'm coming from this Epoch 6 fire. And I don't want to create a mean green community, a mean green group, a mean green Facebook page. I don't want us to be part of the problem. Right? This is you can't just go ram this down someone's throat. I'm speaking to all of us because I think I've established a certain level of trust and that it's coming from I think most people believe, whether you agree with me or not, believe my intentions are good right now. And that's allowing me to push into this more and deeper.